Grand Rising World, this is Pimpin Facts with some more interesting facts. I want to take this opportunity to praise God, AJ, Luke, Deuces and Z. I am humbly requesting to support my content with a thumbs up, and let's get this video to 1,000 likes. Let's get started. Muammar Gaddafi is a hero of his people in Libya and other African states. But to the Americans and the UK, he is deemed to be a terrorist and a traitor to his people. Let us further examine this together. Muammar Gaddafi was a great African revolutionary leader and politician, born on the 7th of June 1942 at Qusar Abu Hadi in Libya. Gaddafi led Libya for 42 years, that is from 1969 to 2011. He was captured and killed on October 20, 2011. After the Battle of Sirte. Many people attached his death to several causes or reasons. Gaddafi was captured by the National Transitional Council forces in Libya and was killed after several accusations. Before his death, Muammar Gaddafi went to take refuge in a large drainage pipe, accompanied by a good number of bodyguards. When the National Transitional Council fighters came, they opened fire, and which saw the demise of the long-hunted Gaddafi. Pimpin Facts will explain possible reason why he was unalive. Gaddafi was killed after being accused of several actions and attempts, most especially his desire to put forth an African gold-based currency known as the gold dinar. According to credible and reliable sources, he was not killed for humanitarian purposes, but for power, oil, and money. Gaddafi suffered torture from the Western National Transitional Forces before finally giving up the ghost on the Battle of Sirte. If Gaddafi had succeeded to establish such a monetary system in Africa, the United States of America, Asia, and Europe would have been forced to buy oil, minerals in the African gold-backed currency, which would have tipped up sales. Gaddafi was strongly pushing this agenda via the African Union, especially when he was the chairman in 2009. The idea was greatly turned down by the Western powers because it will devalue their currencies and work negatively on their economies, and as a result they would have had less or no control over African countries. In other words, Gaddafi's plan for Africa would have put an end to neo-colonialism. NATO's plan to kill Gaddafi is the same as that of Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was assassinated by the US partly because he chose to sell his country's oil in the euro currency at the expense of the United States dollars. Now, the United States was scared and skeptical about the instability the gold dinar will cause to its economy. Hussein, the dollar, was the currency of the enemy. All these would have brought back another currency war, which in history was very common, especially in Western and Middle East countries. According to the International Monetary Funds report, Libya's central bank in 2011 possessed an estimated amount of 144 tons of gold in its vaults. Muammar Gaddafi's plan was to introduce a gold-backed currency, which he previewed that all African and Muslim nations will adopt. Although he had this in mind, he felt it could be some sort of rivalry before the euro and the dollars. How the United States got to know about the gold dinar. A senior advisor to the United States President, Sidney Blumenthal, indicated to his Secretary General, Hillary Clinton, through an email that Gaddafi's government was holding 143 tons of gold and similar amounts of silver in their bank. In late March 2011, these stocks were taken to the southwest direction of Libya's border with Niger in Chad. More heat was added to the matter when former French President Nicolas Sarkozy, who also had an interest in Libya, learnt about the gold and silver that the country had. He also therefore embarked on attacking Libya. Some of Sarkozy's plans was to gain a share in Libyan oil production, to increase their French influence in this country and North Africa, to improve his internal political situation in France, to provide the French military with a chance to regain its position in the world, and to address Gaddafi's plan of freeing the so-called Francophone Africa from the parasitic French control. Hillary Clinton, the then United States Secretary of State, after hearing this, sought to prevent such a creation of such a currency in Africa. This hard currency would have allowed Africa to shake off the chains of colonialism, exploitation in the continent. This allegedly leaked email of Hillary Clinton had far-reaching implications on the fluid state of post-colonial relations with the West. If this is to be like or to something, then it is an eye-opener where Africa seeks to build an independent economic structure. The West is seen to try and derail these plans so as to retain its supremacy in world affairs. That is why Gaddafi saw an unexpected death, due to his desire to get the African Muslim states a new currency. Pimpin factz believes this is the reason why he was unalived. A groundbreaking dream for Africa. Gaddafi's objective of this new currency was to divert oil revenues towards the state-controlled funds rather than the American banks. In other words, it was aimed at stopping the use of the dollar for all transactions in African countries, most especially Nigeria, Tunisia, Egypt, and Angola. In fact, these countries were ready to change their currencies as soon as the golden dinar was launched. Unfortunately, in March 2011, NATO's, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, coalition forces began a military action in Libya in the name of freedom and humanitarian concerns. Unfortunately, many ignorant Libyans listened and believed the Western media. Instead of backing their leader, Muammar Gadafi, he succeeded to rule Libya for over 42 years because he managed to gain support of many of his Libyan tribes by providing them with free water, almost free gasoline, free health system, as well as cheap and affordable education. Gaddafi's death marked the end of an African dream. Muammar Gadafi wanted to stay away from the American influence in his oil transactions by using the golden dinar. He launched a project for this currency, and other African nations were ready to give him massive support. This was an African dream, but at the same time it was going to be a nightmare for Western banking, which greatly benefits the USA and most European countries. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization forces were involved in Gaddafi's capture, while the Libyan military were also on the ground to enhance defense. The NATO forces opened fire in a pipeline hideout where Gaddafi was seeking refuge, wounding him on the leg and back. According to one of the unnamed National Transitional Council fighters, Gaddafi's own loyalists also shot him, apparently to spare him from being captured. Minutes later, as the fighting continued, Muammar Gaddafi was killed. Several videos were shown on television and circulated on the internet. The leader was unalived alongside his son Mutassim Gadafi, and they were buried a few days after their assassinations. Let's look at other reasons that led to the killing of Muammar Gaddafi, besides all what you've been watched about why Muammar Gaddafi was unalived. There are also points from credible media sources that facilitated this process as a strong and very dynamic leader loved by the people of Libya. There are some things Gaddafi did for the people which were not pleasing in the eyes of his opponents. So let's have a look at some of the great things that Muammar Gaddafi had created for his Libyan people. In Libya, there was no payment for electricity during Gaddafi's reign. Electricity was free for all citizens. Fuel, education and healthcare were almost free or close to nothing for most Libyans to afford. 2. With an excellent management of oil revenues, the Libyan state had managed to store hundreds of tons of about 143 tons of gold, according to WikiLeaks. and the same amount of silver. All these resources were going to make Libya the most influential country in Africa, supplanting France, for instance. 3. There were no interest on loans in Libya, in Libyan banks and state-owned financial enterprises. Loans were given and at 0% interest rate by law. 4. Living in a house was a must-have issue for all Libyans. Gaddafi even vowed that his parents would not get a house until everyone in Libya had one. In fact, having a house in Libya was considered a human right. All wedded couples in Libya received money from the government to build their new apartments. 6. Necessities were given out freely or at a very affordable prices to Libyans to better their lives, among others. All these were seen as provocative and dictatorial to those who were not in support of Gaddafi's projects, which at the end culminated to some fighting and subsequent killing of the revolutionary leader of Libya. All these other reasons why Gaddafi was killed are gotten from the Muslim Times media source. Gadafi even carried out the world's largest irrigation project in Libya, the Great Man-Made River. This project utilized giant pipes to send fresh water from the Nubian sandstone aquifer system, fossil aquifer across Libya, and it was fully funded by the Libyan government. No loans from the IMF or China. Unfortunately, not forces intentionally and under strict orders destroyed the irrigation system and even went further to destroy the factory where the pipes for this project was manufactured. And this was a project that was aimed at helping Libyans. So why destroy it if your goal is to free the same Libyans? Pimpin Facts hopes that I have provided some facts to either research, verify, or debunk. This is for entertainment purposes only. This is Pimpin Facts, and look forward to discussing some more interesting facts. Stay frosty, everyone, and please question everything. Grand Rising World.